4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Against the Boards. After 1 week off while I spent some much needed time disconnecting off in the wilderness, we are finally back. And of course, the world of sports did not slow down in that time period. My last 2 weeks have been nothing short of chaotic, to say the absolute least. I still need a haircut, and I was supposed to get that like 2 weeks ago on Tuesday. And then the Seneca Nation decided that they wanted to announce that they were buying the Nighthawks. So everything kind of went up in the air. Immediately went into a National Collegiate Box Series tournament, which we'll talk about in just a little bit here. But then the big news of last week was another movement within the NLL, or the first movement of the summer within the NLL, because of course the Rochester Nighthawks did not need to leave upstate New York. However, another team did leave upstate New York, and that team is the Albany Firewolves. No longer going to be in Albany, the team that was previously the New England Black Wolves, then moved to Albany, restarted as a program as the Firewolves, now will be headed to Oshawa, Ontario. This next season, they will play at the Tribute Community Center in Oshawa. Many jokes already being stated. They're closer to Toronto than the Toronto Rock will be playing. But as we look into the announcement made by the NLL and by the Albany Firewolves themselves, just quickly, not actually going to read the entire thing. It is long. It is 2 pages if you want to go and read it on the NLL site. But ultimately stating, underlying its cost of staying in that stadium, cost of the taxes that are dealt with when you're using that facility in upstate New York, and ultimately that they could get a better deal likely in Canada. Now, I do think, based on the way that this is set up, I don't know that they will be in Oshawa long term. I think they'll probably be there for 1 year. The question will be, when they brand this team, are they going to brand them as the Ontario something? If they brand them as the Ontario something, you can put them in a million different places. But I also think there's a high possibility that this team could end up in Quebec, in Montreal, in Laval, somewhere to that effect. Staying closer to the border, not going like a Halifax situation, but opening up areas within the Canadian markets that they don't have NLL teams right now is definitely a possibility in my mind. But of course that happens. The other thing, as I've been talking to a couple people about this, at the end of the day, the Albany Firewolves had the worst attendance in the NLL last year. 2 years ago, they were in the finals. This team is too good to have the worst attendance in the league. At the end of the day, if things got accelerated because of cost for playing in a certain facility, that accelerates things, and it will, and it can. But at the end of the day, a team that is as good on the floor as they are needed to be able to put more butts in seats, and they realized they couldn't do that in Albany. And so now in Oshawa, though, they set up that almost exact same stretch of 3 that they had in New York. The difference is, last year in New York, it was 3 playoff teams. It's the defending champs in Buffalo, a perennial playoff team in Rochester, and a team that was in the finals the year before in the Albany Firewolves. Now you've got the team with the number 1 overall pick in Toronto, the team that just relocated in Oshawa, and the team that just relocated the year before in Ottawa. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But like I said, I do only think that it's going to be a 1-year situation before that team relocates again. And of course, people already commenting on the NLL's page, not sure how many Oshawa fans you're going to get coming out to games, because it feels very obvious that this is a situation of potentially relocating again with it. Now, keeping it on the box floor before we head outside and get into the PLL. Our interview today is with Zachary Terry, the all-time leading scorer from the Upstate Collegiate Box Lacrosse League. Played 3 seasons with the Hawkeyes in the UCBLL, being coached by Dan Coates. He led the entire NCBS tournament in goals 2 weeks ago for the Hawkeyes, despite the team placing 4th in the tournament. The Buffaloes facing off with the Dramingos, or the Dragons, their team nickname they had for themselves. The Dramingos asked us to call them that, and we're surprised when we did, and then we kept writing it out. But ultimately, Hawkeyes fall to the 4th place spot in that tournament. But Zach Terry, in his last year of that UCBLL eligibility, is now looking, as he's played Senior B through this summer, to potentially get drafted into the NLL. Had a great chat with him about that. I've known Zach for as long as he's played in the UCBLL now. He's a guy that comes up from the Carolinas to play his summer ball in upstate New York. And while working with guys like Dan Coates, Rylan Reese, and Thomas McConvey, he's been able to completely develop his game from just being that premier lefty shooter, where he led all of Division II lacrosse in goals per game in 2 separate years, in his sophomore year and last year. But also creating picks, setting screens, causing chaos down low, creating cause turnovers, grabbing loose balls. He has completely added that to his game in the last 2 years, and that is majorly thanks to Dan Coates and the way that he coaches him on that squad. Unfortunate for the Hawkeyes that the year went the way that it did, but now Terry looking on to his future and excited for that. And without further ado, we'll get into the interview right now. Here is Zach Terry. Alrighty, I am here with former Limestone attackman, now former Hawkeyes forward, the all-time leading scorer in upstate collegiate box history, Zach Terry, following a 4th place finish in the National Collegiate Box Series last 2 weeks ago now. Before we get into that Collegiate Box Series a little bit, obviously, we were both there. I called quite a few of those games. It was a pretty awesome tournament overall, but no UCBLL season this summer. Just kind of talk me through how this summer was different from your past summers of lacrosse.
Well, I actually talked to my father about this, and we both agreed that um like there wasn't really any coaching this summer for me other than like at so I play Senior B for Tonawanda Braves in the Can-Am, and there wasn't really any coaching for me other than that. So like I wasn't really able to get with Coach Coates or Coach Reese or T Mac, any of those guys to, coach me throughout the summer. And, I think that really did affect the way we all played in the tournament. Like we weren't together, and that could have affected the chemistry for sure.
Yeah, I think while watching a lot of UCBLL games over my past 4 years now, if there's one thing that's true, it's that Coatsy is going to eventually be a coach in the NLL. He's that good, just from an X's and O standpoint, but also clearly from a development standpoint. With all of you guys, let's get into that a little bit. There were a lot of things. I mean, your team, I feel like when you look at the National Collegiate Box Series and the way that it formulates for people, so I can preface it a little bit for fans. Every team kind of just gets jumbled together and tossed together. But the Hawkeyes every year, it feels like, with the way that you guys play through the summer, the way that Coates coaches you guys, it feels like it is a team that comes together for the summer each time. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I feel like, different from a lot of leagues because it's not like, I mean, this year we had to grab a couple like Canadian kids like Cliff and Mason Jacobs, and then even a couple kids who don't even haven't even ever played box before, like Oliver. They all played really well and stepped up huge for us. But usually it's like we're the same team all summer, and we're the same team going into the tournament. It's all the same kids. So like that opportunity was huge, and our chemistry was built on relationships and connections that we built throughout the whole summer. And like we knew exactly how to play with each other. We had so much fun together. We were even hanging out outside of the field, outside of the box, and being able to be coached as well. Like I was saying, like it was really it really helped us from a chemistry and just I would say from a lacrosse standpoint.
Yeah. Before I kind of get into what your hopes are for now that your collegiate box lacrosse career is over. Before I get into the afters, obviously T-Mac gets added into your team last year. Um, or added in as a coach last season. What did he do for you to change like how much you felt like you were coached in a summer in box?
Yeah, no, I definitely can say that. I think that not only the team improved as an offense, but having that guy with the knack for understanding the game and being around it for so long definitely helped me as a player, and I think definitely helped our offense. It allowed us to see the things that were opening up. Like as soon as we got to the bench when we didn't score, or even when we did score, he was still coaching us, and I think that played a big factor in our success.
Right. For you in this league, your game has constantly had to evolve, and that's what any college player is going to do in this league, right? You want to continuously add to that and try to get drafted. For you, it went from early on, you were maybe taking too many shots that weren't as high percentage from the outside. You were that premier lefty shooter in a lot of minds. And I feel like for me, at least watching you over the last 3 years, you found your way more into those maybe Thomas McConvey situations, working your way down to the crease, creating cause turnovers. You were like top 5 in loose balls in the tournament. You were the number 1 forward in loose balls. I know that for a fact in the tournament. Um, what has it been over these last couple of years for you? Not changing your game, but adding to your game to put those less premier skills into your bag.
I think it was a couple years ago, that kind of changed my mindset towards everything. Like I came up my first year and I played defense, and the only thing I was good at was like getting loose balls. Like I was not a very good defender to begin with, but obviously like playing more and more, I kind of understand how to play defense a lot more, and I played a little transition here and there. But it was when Coates um, said to me like, if you want to play at the next level, you're going to have to be, you're not going to be the best guy on the best lefty on the team to begin with. Like you're going to have to work your way up to that. And I think that you can add stuff to your game, such as picking and, getting ground balls. He said those two are like the most important things that coaches are going to look at. And I took that to heart. Like even in my field seasons, I literally looked at all my D middies that I played with, and I was like, I'm going to beat you in ground balls this year. And I made that like a challenge with them. And I think that's something that's huge and something that he reiterated to me multiple times, that if we have the ball, they can't score. And if we have the ball, the other team can't win. So,
100%. I feel like the box game, it's really interesting to see when you get attackmen that are so used to being on the field at all times, so you ride. And then you have to go off the floor. So just what is that change like for you in box, knowing, okay, I've got about 6 seconds that I should try to ride, but then I need to get off the floor or I'm creating numbers for them the other way.
yeah, no, it's basically just like knowing the situation. Like if you have a guy that you've been watching the whole game and like, or you've watched film on, um, that isn't the best ball handler and will kind of like fumble around a little bit, or if like we did in some games, like the coaching aspect comes back into it of let's stand in front of the goalie's face and not allow him to clear. That's something that kind of just comes with time, and you just kind of gotta watch film and learn other people's tendencies to know when to ride and when you have to get off really fast so your defenders can get on.
Right, definitely. All right, let's talk a little bit about your hopes for for next year, I guess is the way that I would put it. So obviously you said you're playing junior B, you're getting some reps in or senior B or junior B?
Yeah, yeah,
Senior B.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, I mean, there were a lot of guys in that tournament this year with the way that everything went that have been playing senior B over the summer and then got to swing in or junior A. Obviously we talked about it. Your game has been developing each year so that you can get drafted. And before we got on here today, we were talking about it a little bit. But what is your ideal if 5 years from now, what is Zach Terry doing in your mind?
Um, Obviously with, I'm from South Carolina and, moving somewhere will, maybe be in the cards. But I see myself, working really hard for, I've had this dream to go play pro lacrosse, whether it's the PLL or the NLL my whole life. And the fact that the opportunity is in front of me is mind blowing, especially to my dad. Like I actually flew home last week so I could be home with my dad for the draft, whether I get drafted or not. I see myself in 5 years being somewhere on a pro lacrosse team, working really hard and, trying to, make that program successful. That's kind of where I'm at, doing whatever I have to do to get on the floor and develop as a player and become the best possible uh, lacrosse player I can be.
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean that's the dream, right? I love that you decided to go home for that. Of course, now my computer's going to make noises at me. But I love the idea of going home for that with your dad. I mean, who else are you going to spend that time with, right? For that opportunity. And the other thing too that's awesome about it, I mean, like you think about the NLL draft, there's so many rounds. Like I mean, and I don't want to say this in like, take your energy away from you. You probably will get drafted. It's just then the question of making your way onto that team with there being as many rounds as they are. I mean, you think about Jake last year going in the third round of that draft, or 2 years ago going in the third round of that draft. Like that's a guy who had played what a total of probably 15 box games ever, like at that after that summer by the time they drafted him. You've got triple that under your belt right now. Like I'd have to think you definitely have the chance to get drafted in that sense. What I think is exciting for you though is the prospect of where that can be and what that kind of turns into. I know we've talked about that a little bit, and I don't want you to go naming like cities or anything, but how much have you kind of thought about it? It probably won't be upstate New York that you get to come back and play lacrosse in, even though you're not from here, but this is where you've kind of developed your box game.
Yeah, no, um, I don't know. I've been talking to my family about it, and I've talked to a couple of like GMs and coaches, and some places are willing to send me out there and help me out so I can live there and train there and become a great player. And some places don't have that same opportunity, but no matter what, I want to be able to play as much as possible and then get that opportunity to show that to even show myself that all the hard work that I've put in over the years and the competition I've gone against isn't just, something that's like phony. Like I feel like I could help a team and I definitely think that anywhere I go, I can be successful. I just have to have the right people around me and, just be able to thrive in wherever I am. And I know there's the ALL too, the Arena League. Like even if I do get drafted or don't this year and I go to a training camp and I don't make it, I can still play in that and get a lot of experience against, dudes who are kind of in the same boat. So I mean, either way, there's a chance for me to play and no matter what, I want to take that chance.
Yeah, no, definitely. There definitely is. Before we end here, I love giving validity to these conversations a little bit more for our listeners. Um, how many guys that you've played with on the Hawkeyes have been drafted? Do you know? It's at
I feel
least three, right?
yeah, I think Nick Miller
Yep.
is one, Jake Pacino.
Yep.
Then who
Connor.
else?
Connor.
Okay. Yeah, that's three. There had to have been a couple more that I've played against in the league that
Hunter
have
Lemieux.
you.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, the list really, like, it's a long list. I love knowing that you are the next one on that list, and you are, and I want to give you all of the confidence in that too. But, yeah, you beat all of them in their records that they set while they played in the UCBLL. So if that says anything, right?
yeah, I mean, I just want to be given the opportunity to go somewhere and thrive, That's kind of where I'm at.
Great interview, sitting down and talking to him. Super excited for him to be home with his dad for that opportunity when the draft comes around. And of course, with the draft this year, I was looking at it while he and I were talking about it. More or less a remote draft, it looks like, at least. There hasn't been an announced location that I've been able to find for it. I could be wrong right now. I could have not done enough research. We know in the world of the NLL, sometimes things are always just out there and get buried. But at the moment, it looks like it's really one of those environments of be home with your family and get the phone call and be ready to go wherever. He's also been reaching out to different general managers and scouting departments, sending his tapes from Senior B, sending his tapes from the UCBLL, and explaining what he wants to be able to offer to a team. So, yeah, it's exciting to see the opportunity for Terry. And I know for me personally, as someone who's been watching him ever since he first got into the box, I'm really excited to see what the opportunity presents for him as he goes on in his career. Anyone wondering about his college numbers, in 57 career games, he scored 224 goals. His shooting average over his career in college was 43%. That's just gross, like gross. Outrageous college career, fantastic box college career. And now the question will be, can he take it to the big leagues in the next couple of years in the NLL or in the MSL as time goes on? So now we shift from the box to the field. And of course, it is the bye week for the PLL. But coming up very, very soon will be the first round of the PLL playoffs, as it will start out with our 2 versus 3 seeds on both sides of the bracket. The California Redwoods and the Carolina Chaos facing off in just a couple days. And then, of course, it will be the Water Dogs and the Maryland Whipsnakes. Those games are going to be on Saturday this week. Of course, last week, the bye. Both of those number 1 seeds get a bye this weekend. And then it will be 2 weeks after the semifinals before the finals. Interesting to see the way that they're spacing everything out here, especially with the fact that they've talked about before not wanting to get into football season, and then they're forcing themselves into football season. But ultimately, this first weekend will be in Philly. Both those games will be on ESPN+. California and Carolina, I mean, that's going to be just 2 teams that are beating the crap out of each other. Really, unfortunately, I think, to get beat by Denver, however crazy that might sound. I think the only way that Denver doesn't make the finals out of the West is if Carolina can win their semifinal game and or win their quarterfinal game, and Blaze Reardon is the one facing off against those 4 Tuerton winners. I don't think that California's defense has what it takes to stop that Denver squad. Meanwhile, on the other side of the bracket, I mean, this Philly team could just like catch fire at any given moment and absolutely go on a tear through the whole East, really. But at the same time, I think Maryland's on the downtrend right now. I think that Philly's got their upper leg there, but that Philly-New York game is going to be a fantastic semifinal round. So if I'm picking my bracket right now, let's pick some brackets. Water Dogs versus Atlas, Carolina versus Denver. Give me a Denver-Philly final that Philly wins. Okay, sure. Yep, I just came up with that on the fly, but that's where we're going. Give me the Water Dogs to win the whole thing. CJ Kirsten a final again, put together the greatest year literally ever in lacrosse if he does that, and then gets to cap it off with being the number 1 overall pick in the NLL draft the week before that final would be. Dylan Ward finding his way back into the spotlight as that championship goalie. Potential. I like it. I like the Denver-Philly final. Yeah, we're going to ride with that. Although Liam Entenmann and Connor Schellenberger and Jeff Teat might really have something to say about that. But it'll all start in 2 days. The first game, 6 p.m. Eastern time between the Water Dogs and the Whip Snakes, 8:30 Eastern for the Chaos and the Redwoods. That Chaos Redwoods game, though, for you upstate New Yorkers, that is the upstate New York game. There's absolutely no doubt about it. You got a goalie from Fairport. You've got Rylan Reese and Jared Connors are both the LSMs for the Redwoods. You've got both of the Erlins on the Redwoods as well. Basically as many upstate New York connections as you could have in one PLL lacrosse game exist in your Carolina versus California game. I also hate making that statement. I can't lie. It's just kind of feels like a joke and a bit of a spit in the face to any fan from upstate New York that watches lacrosse, that the two teams with the most players from upstate New York at any given point are literally as far away as they could possibly be from the state of New York. But that does it for our talk for the PLL this week. Like we said, the 23rd will be those semifinal games. The 23rd will be the quarterfinal games. The first will be the semifinals, and the finals will be on the 14th in Harrison, New Jersey. Sprinkled in between the middle week of that will be the NLL draft. We'll have coverage for you on that once we get to it. And but I believe as we get through today, that will wrap it up for us this week on Against the Boards. Of course, we're getting closer and closer to some hockey getting back around the corner with the Rochester Americans, of course. And as more things start to unfold in the month of September with all of that, we'll, of course, have Prospect Challenge and everything like that for you to get into. But for today, for myself, Chamberlain Bauder, thanks to my producer, Paul Russo, we'll see you next time. You're listening to Against the Boards.